The terraformed planet of New Eden glimmered under the light of its twin suns, casting elongated shadows across the colony's vibrant celebration. The colony was alive with color and sound, as the settlers marked the 5th anniversary of their planetfall with a festival of renewal, a testament to their enduring spirit and success. Amid the throng of revelers, Mayor Helen Tran moved gracefully, her eyes reflecting pride and a touch of nostalgia. She stopped by a group of children playing in a mock-up spaceship made of recycled panels, her voice warm and inviting as she approached. "Enjoying the festival, kids?" Helen asked, kneeling to be at eye level with them. Mayor Tran, a small boy, Toby, exclaimed, his face painted like a Martian from the old Earth stories. "Look, I'm flying to the stars." "That you are, Toby. And one day, you might not have to pretend," she chuckled, ruffling his hair gently. "Make sure you're back with your parents before the twin sunset, okay?" "We will, Mayor," they chorused, diving back into their game. Helen stood and walked over to where a group of parents congregated, watching their children with mild amusement and relaxed vigilance. She shared a few pleasantries, discussing community projects and the upcoming harvest season. As the first sun dipped below the horizon, casting the festivities into a surreal twilight, an unusual quiet began to spread. First subtle, then undeniably abrupt, the laughter of children faded, replaced by a tense silence that pricked at Helen's heart. The change was palpable, and within moments, the festival's mood shifted. "Has anyone seen Jenna?" A frantic voice cut through the murmur. Laura, Jenna's mother, pushed through the crowd, her face etched with worry. "No, and I can't find Toby either," another parent joined in, his statement turning the uneasy silence into a ripple of concern that washed over the crowd. Helen's instincts kicked in. "Let's not panic. They're probably just playing a game. Toby loves hide and seek," she tried to reassure the parents, though her own voice trembled with unease. She coordinated groups of adults to search the area, calling out names and peering into the makeshift dens and hideaways the children loved. As the second sun set, casting long shadows and painting the scene in hues of deep orange and purple, a chilling realization dawned. Several children were missing. In the command tent, security footage was hastily reviewed. The screen flickered to life, showing ghostly figures moving with unnatural grace through the crowd, bending and weaving between the shadows. They approached the playing children, who, one by one, disappeared with their strange abductors. The footage was grainy, the figures cloaked in technology that made them nearly invisible to the naked eye. "Aliens! They have to be," the head of security murmured, disbelief etched across his features as he paused and replayed the chilling sequence. Helen felt a cold shiver run down her spine. "This can't be happening," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the murmur of distressed parents and the now ominous festival music. "We need to act, and quickly," she declared, her voice firm, masking her fear. "Inform the Earth Space Command. Lock down the colony. No one in or out until we understand what we're dealing with." "But, Mayor, are we sure? Look at this footage," Helen snapped, pointing at the screen. "This isn't a time for doubt. Our children are out there, with them." The night deepened, and with it, a palpable dread settled over New Eden. Parents huddled together, some crying, others numb with shock, as search parties returned empty-handed and desolate. Helen stood before her people, the weight of leadership pressing down on her. "We will find our children," she vowed into the microphone, her voice carrying across the silent crowd. "Whatever it takes, we will bring them home." The promise hung in the air, a solemn oath against the backdrop of a now joyless festival. As the colony fortified its defenses and sent distress signals piercing through the cosmos, the stars overhead twinkled indifferently, hiding the threats lurking in the vast unknown. Inside the hastily convened emergency war room, Mayor Helen Tran stood surrounded by her top advisors and a few off-world experts connected via holographic projection. The walls were plastered with digital maps and live feeds from surveillance drones scanning the colony's perimeter. The air was tense, thick with a weight of uncertainty and fear. "Let's go over what we know," Helen began, her voice steady despite the undercurrent of urgency. The children were taken at approximately 1903 hours during the festival. Security footage confirms the presence of unidentified entities, presumably extraterrestrial. Dr. Lena Hart, the head scientist, adjusted her glasses and pointed to the looping footage on the main screen. The abductors employed some form of cloaking technology. "It's beyond anything in our current understanding. You can see here," she paused the video at a critical frame, "the distortion around this figure suggests advanced optical camouflage. Could they still be on the planet? Asked Colonel Jack Raymond, the military attaché assigned to New Eden from Earth Space Command. It's unlikely, Lena replied. Our sensors picked up a burst of quantum energy shortly after the last child vanished. They've likely transported to a ship or another location. Jack frowned, his hands clenched tightly. Then we're dealing with a highly advanced civilization. Our conventional tactics might be useless. Helen turned to the communications officer. What's the status on the distress signal? It's been broadcasting for over 12 hours, Mayor. No response yet from Earth, but it's possible they haven't received it due to quantum disturbances, the officer reported, adjusting the dials on the console. Helen nodded, absorbing the gravity of their isolation. Then, addressing the hologram of Commander Sarah Knox, the Earth Space Command liaison, she asked, Commander, assuming our signal reaches Earth, how soon can we expect assistance? Commander Knox's image flickered slightly. Given the quantum disturbances, it's hard to say. Best case, help could be weeks away. You need to be prepared to handle this situation locally. The room fell silent, the implications hanging heavily between them. Helen's resolve hardened. Then we prepare for the worst. Dr. Hart, what can we do to shield against their technology? Lena was already typing rapidly at her terminal. I'll need to analyze the footage further, try to reverse engineer their cloaking mechanism. Maybe we can develop something to counter it, or at least detect their presence. Do it, Helen instructed firmly. Jack, I want a full combat readiness report. If they come back, we won't let them take anyone else. Jack nodded, his expression grim. We'll start training drills immediately. I'll also set up surveillance on all known quantum fluctuation points around the colony. As the meeting adjourned, Helen remained behind, staring at the frozen image of a child reaching out just before vanishing. The door opened, and Laura, Jenna's mother, entered, her eyes red from crying. Maya Tran, please, she pleaded, her voice cracking with emotion. Tell me there's hope. Helen approached her, taking her hands. Laura, we're doing everything we can. I promise you, we're not giving up on Jenna or any of the children. Laura nodded, trying to muster a brave smile through her tears. Thank you. I feel so helpless. We all do, Helen admitted, her voice softer now. But we're not beaten yet. We have our best people working on this. Stay strong. After Laura left, Helen returned to the main screen, reviewing the footage again. Each frame seemed to mock her, a reminder of the stakes. Just then, her communications officer rushed in. Mayor, you need to see this. We've picked up a transmission. It's not from Earth. Helen's heart skipped a beat. On screen now. The room darkened as the transmission began to play. A voice, cold and modulated, spoke in perfect English. Humans of New Eden, you harbor what we seek. Surrender the remainder of your offspring, and no further harm will come to your settlement. The message looped once before cutting off. The implications were clear. The aliens knew they were vulnerable and were ready to exploit it. Helen felt a chill run through her. Her resolve, however, did not waver. Record a response. Tell them we do not negotiate with kidnappers and that any further aggression will be met with maximum force. As the officer set to work, Helen looked out the window at the darkened colony. Lights flickered as people fortified their homes, a stark contrast to the previous night's celebrations. She whispered to herself, we will get them back, no matter what it takes. Mayor Helen Tran stood before a room packed with her most trusted advisors and the newly formed task force, a mixture of military personnel, scientists, and some of the colony's toughest civilians. Their faces were set with determination, reflecting the gravity of their mission. Thank you all for coming on such short notice, Helen began, her voice echoing slightly in the large, makeshift briefing room. We're here to discuss our response to the alien threat and to prepare for a potential rescue operation. Our primary goal is clear: recover our children and ensure the safety of our colony. Colonel Jack Raymond stepped forward, his posture rigid with military precision. We've established a perimeter defense around the colony and initiated combat training for all security personnel. Surveillance drones are monitoring for any unusual activity around the clock. Dr. Lena Hart was next, adjusting her glasses nervously. My team is working on deciphering the technology captured from the security footage. We believe we can create a rudimentary sensor that will detect the cloaking signature of the alien tech. Helen nodded approvingly. Excellent work, Lena. What about offensive capabilities? Can we adapt their technology to our own use? It's possible, Lena replied, but it will take time. We're not just dealing with advanced technology, it's alien. Every step requires careful analysis to avoid catastrophic failures. Understood. Keep me updated on your progress, Helen said, turning her attention to the rest of the room. Now, let's talk strategy. We need a team ready to move the moment we locate the children. I want volunteers, those willing to face whatever is out there for the sake of our young ones. Several hands shot up, driven by a mix of bravery and the raw, emotional need to do something, anything, to bring the children home. I'll lead the ground team, Jack declared firmly. We'll need experts in combat, survival, and negotiation, if it comes to that. Helen, I also suggest we include some of our scientific staff in case we encounter unknown environments or need to interface with alien technology. Helen considered this. Agreed. Lena, please select a few of your best people to join the rescue team. But remember, your primary task is to crack that cloaking device. As the meeting progressed, plans began to take shape. Training schedules were drafted, and equipment lists were drawn up, each item debated for its usefulness against an unknown foe. Later, Helen found herself walking through the training grounds where volunteers drilled under Jack's watchful eye. She paused to watch a group practice disarming maneuvers, a necessary skill if they were to face their abductors without lethal force. Mayor Tran, Jack called, jogging over. They're making good progress. How are you holding up? I'm fine, Jack, she said, though her tired eyes told another story. I won't truly be fine until those children are back where they belong. I understand. We all do, he replied, glancing back at the trainees. We'll be ready to move on your word. That evening, Helen addressed the colony in a broadcast, aiming to bolster the spirits of her people and update them on the preparations. Standing before the camera, she exuded a calm authority that had become her hallmark. My fellow settlers, she began, her gaze steady and unwavering. I know this is a time of great anxiety and fear for us all. But I assure you, we are not sitting idle. Our best and bravest are preparing to confront those who have taken our children. We are doing everything in our power to protect our community and bring our young ones home. The response from the community was a mixture of support and palpable anxiety. Parents huddled in their homes, clinging to the hope Helen's words provided. After the broadcast, Helen met privately with a small group of parents whose children were among the abducted. They gathered in a quiet, dimly lit room, their faces drawn with worry. We're doing everything we can, Helen reassured them, her voice soft yet firm. I promise you, we are not giving up. Not now, not ever. One of the mothers, a woman named Sarah, looked up, her eyes brimming with tears. Thank you, Mayor Tran. Hearing you say that, it means everything to us right now. Helen reached out, taking Sarah's hand. We are united in this. Your children are my children. We will bring them home. As the meeting ended, Helen felt the weight of her promise heavy on her shoulders. She walked back to her office, passing the now quiet training grounds, a reminder of the looming challenge they faced. But within her, a fierce resolve burned. She would do whatever it took to fulfill her vow. The command center was buzzing with activity as Helen Tran watched the teams prepare for the first proactive steps towards making contact with the aliens responsible for the children's abduction. The air was tense, filled with a mix of determination and the palpable stress of the unknown. Final checks are complete, Mayor. We are ready to initiate the contact protocol, Colonel Jack Raymond reported, approaching Helen with a tablet displaying their planned communication sequence. Thank you, Jack. Let's proceed cautiously. Remember, our primary goal is to establish dialogue and negotiate the children's return, Helen responded, her voice steady but her hands betraying a slight tremor as she accepted the tablet. Jack nodded, his face set in a grim line. Understood. I'll be leading the communication from the operations room. We have prepared a set of messages in various universal formats, hoping one will get through and be understood. Helen watched as Jack headed towards the operations room. She turned to Dr. Lena Hart, who was adjusting the settings on a device that looked like a hybrid between a satellite dish and a computer. Lena, how's the detection equipment coming along? Helen asked, trying to keep her tone light. We've managed to adapt the sensors to detect the cloaking signature we analyzed. It's still a bit rough, but we should know if they're near, Lena replied, not looking up from her device. Let's hope it gives us the upper hand this time, Helen murmured, her gaze drifting towards the large screen that would soon show the results of their first real attempt at communication with the alien beings. As the team settled, Jack's voice came over the speaker, initiating contact protocol in 3, 2, 1. Broadcast is live. The room fell silent, every member of the team holding their breath as the signals were sent out into the cosmos, a digital message of peace and negotiation. Minutes dragged like hours, the tension climbing with each passing second. Suddenly, the silence was broken by a soft ping from Lena's device. "We have a response," she announced, her voice a mix of excitement and anxiety. "It's weak, but it's definitely a return signal. Can you trace it?" Helen asked, stepping closer to view the data scrolling rapidly on Lena's screen. "Working on it." "Got it." "It's coming from the dark side of the moon orbiting our planet," Lena responded, her fingers flying over the controls. "Visual on screen, please," Helen commanded, turning towards the main display. The screen flickered and then showed the moon's surface, barren and cratered, with a small, anomalous blip that pulsed gently. "That's them. That's got to be their base of operations," Jack said, his voice crackling through the speaker again. Helen's mind raced as she considered their options. "Jack, prepare a reconnaissance mission. We need eyes on that location. Lena, make sure Jack's team is equipped with your sensors. If those aliens so much as twitch, I want to know about it." "Yes, Mayor," both replied, a new urgency in their actions. As the preparations for the reconnaissance mission went underway, Helen felt a knot of apprehension form in her stomach. This was a crucial step, not just a search and rescue now, but a potential confrontation with a technologically superior foe. Later, as Jack's team geared up, Helen pulled him aside. "Jack, be careful out there. We don't know what you're walking into, and I need every one of you back here safely." Jack met her gaze, his eyes resolute. "We'll be cautious, Helen. We all know what's at stake." The team departed under the cloak of darkness, using the colony's best stealth shuttle. Helen watched from the command center, the live feed from the shuttle's cameras displaying on the large screen. The moon grew larger and more intimidating as they approached. Landing site in sight, the pilot's voice broke through the tense silence. "No signs of activity. Beginning descent." The shuttle landed smoothly on the moon's surface, the landscape barren and unwelcoming. Jack and his team disembarked, their movements slow and deliberate in the low gravity. "Sensors are active and scanning," one of the team members reported, sweeping the area with a handheld device. "Movement." To the left, another team member called out. The cameras swiveled to catch a glimpse of something disappearing into a crater. "Let's approach with caution. Weapons ready but set to stun. Remember, we're here to gather information and try for peace, not start a war," Jack instructed, leading his team towards the crater. As they neared the edge, the ground beneath them shifted unexpectedly. "Ambush!" someone shouted as figures emerged from the shadows, their forms distorted by the cloaking technology. The team backed into a defensive formation, but before any more than a few stun shots were fired, a voice halted everyone. "Wait. We mean no harm," it called out, strangely modulated but clear in the desolate silence of the moon. Helen, watching from millions of miles away, held her breath. This was the moment that could determine the fate of the children and perhaps the entire colony. The tension was palpable as Colonel Jack Raymond cautiously lowered his weapon, signaling his team to stand down. The alien figure that had called out now stepped forward, its cloaking device flickering off, revealing a slender form with luminescent skin and eyes that reflected the bleak moonscape. "We wish to communicate," the alien spoke, its voice carrying an odd, harmonic undertone. "We understand your distress." Jack glanced back at his team, his expression wary but controlled. "We're here to recover our children," he stated firmly. "Why were they taken? What do you want from us?" The alien tilted its head, considering the question. "Your offspring possess unique potentials. We needed to understand their resilience, their adaptability for harsh environments." Jack's grip tightened on his weapon, though he kept it pointed at the ground. "You took children for experiments?" he asked, his voice laced with disgust. "Not experiments in the sense you fear," the alien clarified quickly. "Observation, education in our ways of survival against universal threats. We mean no harm to them." "You have a strange way of showing it," Jack countered sharply. "You abducted them without consent, without explanation. You must return them immediately." The alien paused, then nodded slowly. "It is possible to arrange their return, but we require a dialogue with your leaders. We need assurances of understanding and cooperation. Jack communicated the update to Helen via his headset. Helen, watching the live feed in the command center, felt a mix of relief and skepticism. "Keep them talking, Jack. We need to buy time to plan our next move," she instructed. "Understood," Jack replied, then turned back to the alien. "We can arrange a meeting with our mayor. But I need to see the children first. We need proof they are safe." The alien hesitated, then gestured for Jack and two of his team to follow. "Come. I will show you they are unharmed." As Jack and his selected team members followed the alien across the stark lunar surface, they approached a structure that blended almost seamlessly with the surroundings. It was only as they drew closer that the outline became visible, shimmering slightly as the cloaking technology adjusted. Inside, the atmosphere was starkly different from the barren outside. The air was warm, and soft lights illuminated a spacious area where the children were kept. To Jack's immense relief, the children appeared healthy and unharmed, some even engaging in what looked like educational activities. The sight of the children, albeit safe, did little to cool Jack's simmering anger. "How can we trust you after this?" he asked the alien, his voice echoing slightly in the large chamber. "We seek to build trust now," the alien responded. "Let us discuss terms for their return." Back at the command center, Helen was strategizing with her advisors. Dr. Lena Hart had managed to make significant progress with the alien technology. "We can potentially disrupt their cloaking devices long enough to launch a rescue operation," she reported. "That's our backup plan," Helen decided. "First, we attempt negotiation. If that fails, we use what you've developed to get our children out by force." Jack returned to the shuttle with his team and the alien envoy to arrange the meeting with Helen. As they traveled back to the colony, Jack briefed Helen on the situation. "They've agreed to a meeting, but I don't like it," Jack admitted. "It feels like they're stalling. We need a solid plan in place." Helen nodded, her face set in a determined line. "The plan is to negotiate with every intention of getting our children back peacefully. But at the first sign of treachery, we act decisively." The shuttle landed back at the colony, and the alien was escorted under heavy guard to the council hall where Helen awaited. The room was tense as the alien entered, its presence causing an almost palpable shift in the atmosphere. "Welcome," Helen began, her voice neutral. "We are prepared to discuss the safe return of our children. But know this, non-compliance is not an option." The alien nodded, its eyes scanning the room. "We are ready to return your offspring. In exchange, we ask for open dialogues about sharing knowledge and resources. Your children have taught us much about your kind's potential for adaptability and resilience. And what exactly do you offer in return?" Helen asked, skeptical of the alien's seemingly sudden willingness to cooperate. "Technological advancements, knowledge of the cosmos, and protection against other, more hostile entities," the alien proposed. Helen paused, considering the offer. It was tempting, potentially beneficial for the colony's future. But could they trust these beings? She glanced at Jack, who shook his head subtly. "We will consider your offer," Helen said finally. "But first, the children return to us. No conditions." The alien inclined its head. "Very well. We will arrange for their return." As the alien departed, Helen felt a mixture of victory and unease. The children would be coming home, but at what cost? And was the threat truly over, or had they just opened the door to something far greater? The atmosphere in the command center was charged as Helen Tran and her team awaited confirmation from the aliens on the coordinates for the pickup of the children. The plan was set, but everyone was on edge, knowing the myriad of things that could go wrong. Colonel Jack Raymond was double-checking every piece of equipment, ensuring the rescue team was ready to move at a moment's notice. Dr. Lena Hart was tweaking the last settings on a portable version of the device designed to disrupt the alien cloaking technology, should they need it. Helen approached Jack, who was overseeing the loading of gear into the transport vehicles. "Everything in order?" she asked, trying to sound more confident than she felt. Jack nodded, his face a mask of concentration. "As ready as we'll ever be. The team knows the drill, and we've got contingencies in place. Once we get the go-ahead with the location, we'll be en route." Just then, a communication officer signaled to Helen. "Mayor, we've received the coordinates. The aliens are ready for the exchange." Helen felt a surge of adrenaline. "Thank you. Inform the team. It's time." Jack gave a series of orders, and the team quickly mobilized. The convoy of armored vehicles moved out, with Helen and a small advisory team following in a command vehicle. The journey was tense, each kilometer adding to the weight of uncertainty. The rendezvous point was in a remote area, far from the colony, where the stark, rocky terrain provided little cover. As they approached, the sensors in Lena's device picked up traces of the alien technology. "They're here, or at least, they were recently," Lena reported, eyes fixed on her readings. Jack surveyed the area through binoculars. "I see the ship. It's landed just beyond that ridge." Helen grabbed her own binoculars and looked toward the indicated spot, seeing the faint outline of a ship that seemed to shimmer in and out of visibility. "Okay, let's approach cautiously. Remember, no heroics. We get the children, ensure they're safe, and pull out." The team advanced on foot, spreading out in a tactical formation. As they neared the ship, a group of alien figures appeared, leading a group of children. The sight of the children, so close yet potentially still out of reach, tightened Helen's chest. Jack initiated the final approach, his voice calm but loud enough to carry. "We are here for the children. Release them to us, and we can discuss your proposal." The lead alien, the one who had previously spoken with Jack, nodded and spoke in its modulated voice. "We comply. The children will be returned to you now." As the children began walking towards the human team, Helen watched intensely, every maternal and protective instinct in her body on high alert. One by one, the children crossed the space between them, their expressions ranging from confusion to relief. Once all the children were accounted for, Helen let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. But the relief was short-lived. Suddenly, Lena's device emitted a sharp, warning beep. "They're powering up the ship. They might be preparing to leave, or worse," Lena shouted. Jack reacted instantly. "All units, pull back. Now." He grabbed the nearest child, a little boy trembling with fear, and led a swift retreat to the vehicles. The ground beneath them shook as the alien ship powered up, its engines emitting a low, ominous hum. Helen helped shepherd the children into the armored vehicles, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and urgency. "Drive! Get us out of here!" Jack yelled to the drivers as he jumped into the last vehicle. The convoy sped away just as a blast of energy shot from the rear of the alien ship, striking the ground where they had been moments before. The explosion sent rocks and debris flying, but the vehicles were already at a safe distance, racing towards the safety of the colony. Back at the command center, the children were reunited with their families in emotional scenes of tears and joy. Helen watched, her own eyes moist with relief, as parents hugged their children tightly, expressions of gratitude mixed with disbelief painting their faces. After the reunions, Jack approached Helen, a serious look on his face. "That was too close. I don't trust that this is over. They let us take the children too easily." Helen nodded, her gaze firm. "Agreed. We need to stay vigilant, increase patrols, and keep monitoring any alien activity. This might not be the end of it." As the celebration continued around them, Helen's mind was already racing with the implications of today's events. The aliens had shown that they were not to be underestimated, and the safety of her people was far from guaranteed. But for now, the children were safe, and that was what mattered. She allowed herself a moment to join in the relief and happiness, though she knew that the coming days would bring new challenges. The convoy raced back towards the safety of New Eden, the rear cameras of the lead vehicle displaying the alien ship receding into the distance. Despite the successful rescue, the atmosphere among the team was tense, each member alert for any signs of pursuit or danger. Colonel Jack Raymond checked the rear cameras again, his voice breaking the heavy silence. "No sign of them following. But keep the pace until we're secure inside the colony's defenses." Mayor Helen Tran nodded, her eyes fixed on the road ahead. Inside the command vehicle, the rescued children were quiet, some still in shock, while others clung to the team members they recognized. Helen turned to Dr. Lena Hart, who was monitoring the sensors continuously. "Lena, anything on the scanners? Any movement from their ship?" Helen asked, her voice steady despite the underlying stress. Lena shook her head, her eyes not leaving the screen. "Nothing yet. It seems they haven't moved since we left. But I'll keep monitoring. We can't take any chances." Helen felt a momentary relief, but knew the danger was far from over. "Good. Let's not let our guard down until we're back behind our walls." As the convoy approached the outskirts of New Eden, They were met by additional security forces, ready to escort them through the final stretch. The sight of the colony's protective barriers was a welcome one, and as the gates closed behind them, a collective sigh of relief swept through the group. Jack turned to Helen with a serious expression. "We need to debrief immediately, assess any risks of retaliation, and bolster our defenses. This isn't over." Helen nodded in agreement. "Arrange the meeting. I want all department heads there. We need to be prepared for whatever comes next." Once back at the command center, Helen presided over the debriefing, where the recent events were laid out and analyzed. The room was filled with the heads of security, science, communications, and civilian leadership. "First, I want to acknowledge everyone's efforts today. We did something remarkable. But our focus must now shift to ensuring the continued safety of the colony," Helen began, her gaze sweeping over the room. Jack stood up, the map of the surrounding areas displayed behind him. "We've increased patrols and surveillance around the perimeter. All entry points are on high alert. We're also working on enhancing our sensor capabilities to detect any cloaking signals, thanks to Dr. Hart's team." Lena added, "We're close to a breakthrough with the alien technology. Soon, we may be able to not only detect them but potentially neutralize their tech if they attempt another incursion." Helen nodded, pleased with the progress but still cautious. "Excellent. Communication lines must remain open and active. Any anomaly, no matter how small, should be reported immediately." The meeting continued with discussions on potential diplomatic strategies and long-term security measures. As they wrapped up, Helen felt a grim determination settling over her. They were in uncharted waters, dealing with a new alien threat that had shown both hostility and a willingness to negotiate under pressure. Later, as Helen walked through the colony, she stopped to speak with families reunited with their children. The relief and joy were palpable, but so was the lingering fear of what might come next. One parent, a father named Michael, approached Helen with his daughter hand in hand. "Mayor, I can't thank you enough for bringing them back. But what do we do if they come again? How do we keep our kids safe?" Helen crouched down to speak to the little girl first, smiling gently. "I'm so glad you're safe. Remember, we're all here to look after each other, okay?" Then she stood, addressing Michael's concerns. "We're doing everything we can to strengthen our defenses and to understand our enemy. But it's also on each of us to remain vigilant, to look out for one another. We've faced tough challenges before. We'll face this one together too." As night fell over New Eden, Helen stood on the balcony of the command center, looking out over the colony. The stars twinkled above, a stark contrast to the darkness of space beyond. Somewhere out there, the aliens were likely regrouping, possibly planning their next move. Jack joined her, his voice low. "We're in a better position now, Helen. We know they can be beaten back, negotiated with." Helen sighed, turning to him. "Yes, but at what cost next time? We must be ready. We must keep pushing forward, learning and adapting. Our children's future, everyone's future, depends on it." As the lights of the colony shone below, Helen felt the weight of her responsibility deeply. The road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but she knew that New Eden's survival depended on their readiness and unity. They had escaped danger today, but tomorrow was a new day, with new threats to face. The morning after the children's return, New Eden awoke to a palpable sense of relief mixed with lingering unease. The colony's central square, once a scene of frantic worry and fear, had transformed overnight into a site of quiet reflection and newfound resolve. Mayor Helen Tran made her way to the square, where a community gathering was already in progress. She approached the podium amid the sound of soft murmurs and the occasional child's laughter, a sound that seemed all the sweeter given recent events. "Good morning, everyone," Helen began, her voice carrying clearly across the crowd. "Today we stand reunited with our loved ones, a testament to the strength and courage of our community. But our work is far from over." The crowd listened intently as Helen continued. "We have faced an unprecedented threat, not with fear, but with fortitude. We have proven that even in the face of advanced alien technology, the spirit of human resilience prevails." A round of applause broke out, but Helen raised her hand for silence. "Let us also be clear-eyed about the future. We have entered into a new chapter of our existence here on New Eden. A chapter where vigilance and preparation are our top priorities." Colonel Jack Raymond, standing to the side of the stage, nodded in agreement, his expression solemn. After the applause died down, He joined Helen at the podium. "Thanks to Mayor Tran's leadership and your brave efforts, our children are safe. However, the threat remains. We must be ready to defend our home and our families against any future incursions." Helen then introduced Dr. Lena Hart, who had been instrumental in adapting the alien technology. Lena stepped forward, her notes in hand. "We are making significant advancements in understanding the technology that was used against us. We're not just aiming to defend against a possible next time, we're working to ensure there is no next time." The crowd listened, rapt, as Lena described the ongoing efforts to enhance the colony's defensive systems and the potential for using alien technology to improve life on New Eden. As the speeches concluded, Helen invited the community to participate in a day of workshops and information sessions designed to educate everyone on the new safety protocols and the scientific principles they were applying. Throughout the day, Helen moved among her people, answering questions and reinforcing the message of unity and vigilance. As the sun began to set, she stood with a small group of parents whose children had been directly affected by the abduction. One mother, whose daughter had been among the kidnapped, spoke up. "Mayor Tran, how can we be sure they won't come back? What if we can't defend ourselves next time?" Helen took the woman's hand, her gaze earnest. "We are doing everything in our power to protect our colony. Every step we take in advancing our technology, every drill we run, and every plan we make is for our security. But it's not just about technology or strategies. It's about us, working together as a community." The woman nodded, squeezing Helen's hand in gratitude. Later that evening, Helen and Jack reviewed the colony's new strategic plans in her office. The walls were lined with digital screens showing maps and various data streams. "We're better prepared now, but the balance has shifted," Jack remarked, looking over a report. "They know we can hit back, and we understand a bit more about how they operate." "Yes, but we've also shown them that we won't be bullied or intimidated." "That's important," Helen replied, her voice firm. "We keep pushing forward, keep strengthening our defenses, and keep our community informed and prepared. We also need to keep an eye on diplomatic channels, just in case they reach out again." Jack agreed. "I'll coordinate with communications to make sure any alien signals are flagged immediately. We'll also continue training the militia. Everyone needs to know how to respond if an attack happens." As they wrapped up their meeting, Helen looked out over the colony from her office window. The lights of the homes glowed warmly in the growing darkness, a stark contrast to the cold stars above. "This is more than just survival, Jack," Helen mused aloud. "It's about preserving our way of life, making sure that fear doesn't define us. We'll keep New Eden safe, not just for now, but for the generations to come." Jack nodded. "And we'll do it together. That's what makes us different from them." Helen smiled, her resolve clear. "Exactly. Together, we're invincible." As night enveloped the colony, the community slept a little easier, knowing that their leadership was vigilant and proactive. But far above, the stars held secrets and possible threats that kept Helen vigilant, ever aware that the peace of tonight could be the silence before another storm.